are the co-founders of Dipper.
Dipper is a technology platform that guides professionals of color to a better workplace, one review at a time.
Dipper is your safe space. It is the time for you to share your voice with a community that you are a part of. Visit us and join today at ourdipper.com.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Welcome to the virtual launch of ourdipper.com. We are hosting virtual events throughout April, so please join us every Tuesday and Thursday this month to participate in our Shut Up and Listen themed events. Each event will feature top DEI thought leaders to discuss engaging topics impacting workplace culture. Now, this is a perfect opportunity to share more about Dipper, a tech platform for all people of color, Black, Latinx, Asian, and Indigenous professionals of all levels, including C-suite, to rate and review their workplaces. Members have profiles and can access the inside scoop on which companies to join and stay away from. Members can also engage with other members on Dipper's newsfeed. So today, we will be discussing the topic of, are you ready? Illusion and the reality of allyship.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Netta. And first, we'd also like to introduce our influential guest, Minda Hart. And Minda, I am so excited to see you again and have you online with us today. Minda is a speaker, entrepreneur, thought leader, and adjunct professor at NYU. She is also the founder of The Memo, whose mission is to motivate and encourage women of color to achieve their professional and personal goals. She was named the #1 top voice on LinkedIn for equity in the workplace in 2020. Minda is also an award-winning author of The Memo. I'm going to say that again. The Memo is a book everyone needs to buy. I have given it as a gift to over 5 women, and I have 2 in my house right now. Like, I keep one on hand to give out. So it's definitely an amazing book that every woman needs to own, called The Memo. And let's see where else. And you can pre-order her next book, the Right Within: How to Heal from Racial Trauma in the Workplace Today. And check her out on LinkedIn Live on Mondays.
Oh my God.
And lastly, and most importantly, she loves salted grits and nachos.
Yeah, don't forget that part. Don't forget.
Like,
Don't forget that.
Minda is a real one.
Say that one more time. A real one. And yes, real one, right?
Yeah.
And just is so right. Like, if you have not read Minda's book, then I don't know what else you're doing in life. All right. Because like
Stop
this
right
book
now.
is the book to read. So please go and grab yourself a copy today. In fact, do it right now. Do it right now. Head to Amazon as we're having this thought-provoking conversation. We are super excited to have Minda, who is such an influential woman, share her voice with us today. So let's start by addressing the topic of illusion and the reality of allyship. Minda, how do you even define allyship, and what is the difference between performative allyship and real allyship?
Where do we begin? But thank you both for having me. Congratulations on Dipper. We got to have you on the LinkedIn Live Monday show to talk more about that, so people can get the Dipper, right? And so, along with the memo. Okay, so it's so interesting that we're talking about performative, because right now you see that there's a lot of companies, not enough, but some companies who are saying, we're standing with voting rights, all of those things, right? But last year, almost every company was saying Black Lives Matter. And if Black Lives mattered last year, then why wouldn't equal voting rights matter this year, right? And so we
Something to think about.
something to think about, right? So for me, it's less about, I would actually rather, and this is my opinion only, I would rather see someone demonstrate allyship than tell me what they're doing, right? So one thing for someone to say, I'm an ally, but ask yourself, when is the last time you demonstrated allyship? Because the demonstration piece is what changes lives, right? So it's not enough to say Black Lives Matter and climb on top of the Empire State Building and black out your screen. Those things are nice, but they don't necessarily change the way that Black and brown people are experiencing the workplace or experiencing this country. And so it's the demonstration piece for me. And I would ask everybody to check themselves and say, hey, when is the last time I've demonstrated allyship? And if you can't, have a tangible receipt, then figure out what that looks like. But in order to be an ally for someone, you have to get to know them, because how to be an ally for me is different than it might be for you two, right? So it's not a one size fits all. Oh, I read the memo. Now I'm an ally for all Black women. That's just the beginning.
My gosh, Minda, I knew you were going to do this to us. I knew it. I knew you were not going to come on here and give it to us light. You are absolutely right. And what I'm finding is, again, there are a lot of people that say they're practicing allyship or saying that they are allies, and they're reading a lot of resources. At a certain point, when do you stop reading, or do you continue reading?
That's a great question, Netta, because, I was looking on the New York Times list the other day, and I saw that White Fragility was still a New York Times bestseller. Now, right. That means that people are still reading the book, right? But when we show up every day in the workplace, all that reading is not really changed how we're experiencing the workplace, So reading is important. I think of it in 3 layers. You're listening, what many people might be doing right now. You're educating, you're reading the books or the podcast, or, giving to certain organizations that help move the needle forward. And then lastly, the most important piece is the activation. You can read, if you're just trying to have a book club, then say that. But if you're really trying to do the work, then let's see it in action, right? So I think we're just at a pivotal point where all of that education, now it's time to activate, because that's the only way we're going to change. You think about Georgia, for example. The only way that they could change that state is the activation, right? Is they activated. And so it could really look amazing if all of our allies who have been reading and listening would actually activate. And that takes courage. So, and I know that, some people haven't activated that part yet, but if you call yourself an ally, then it requires something from you.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. And how do we think that allies can activate and demonstrate their activism? Like, what are some ways? You talked about people showing up for voting rights, but what are ways that people can learn more about a community different from themselves, and then also actively participate in empowering that community?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. And I realize even we're not just talking about, white people being allies. We all have the capacity to be better allies for each other, right? And so even when I think about it from my point of view, I was at an event one time, and I was having a conversation. I didn't know anybody there. You know how you're mingling at cocktail hour, and one of the people that were there talking happened to be a trans woman, and she was talking, we were all doing small talk, and there was another African-American man there, and he kept referring to her as he. And he said it a couple of times, right? And it dawned on me, Minda, ding, 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 this is your opportunity to show up and activate, right? And so in that moment, I didn't holler at him do you not, what are you doing? I did it in what was authentic to me, right? So allyship has to also be authentic to you. So what I ended up doing is saying, she said, blah, 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 blah. And in that small act, he then started to refer to her as she, right? And so if we start to show people what good looks like, what better looks like, then we have the ability to do that. But I could have just stood there and just let him keep macro aggressing her, but I actually had an opportunity to be a part of the solution. And I remember she looked at me with just, thank you, and I'll never forget that look. And it's not patting myself on the back, but we got to show up when the opportunity calls for it, right? So figure out what that means to you. It may not be hollering out on the Zoom screen, but it might be approaching that person through direct message, right? I realize what you said may not have been intended harm, but think about how that might have landed on your colleague, Minda. Just want to make you aware of it, right? So there's so many ways for us to show up, and I just hope that we will, because that's the only way we're going to make the workplace work for everybody.
Yeah. No, Minda, that was so powerful. And just to kind of switch gears just a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about cancel culture. Do you think that the presence of cancel culture is helping or harming potential allyship? What are your thoughts around that?
Now, I'm glad we're talking about this, because this may be an unpopular opinion, but, I think we have to extend space and grace for people. Somebody who might have been problematic 10 years ago, they're trying to do the work, they're demonstrating that they're doing better. Do we just throw them out, right? Because we found a tweet from 10 years ago, but now everything they've been doing in the present has shown that they're trying to be a better person. I really have to think that we have to put ourselves, now, granted, if they've had a track record of harm and we don't see any tangible receipts of better today, then that's a different conversation. But I think we tend to cancel a lot of people who actually are demonstrating that they're trying to do better. And so I think that's why it's important for us to be right within, so that we can assess who means harm right now and who doesn't, right? And it doesn't mean we just wave a magic wand and forget what they did in the past, but let's look at who are they trying to show up as right now. And so I think we all want that grace afforded to us in certain times. So curious your thoughts, both of you.
Yeah,
I agree. I think a lot of times, at times I wish there was a website that kept track of everyone we were supposed to have canceled, because I have a difficult time keeping track of it sometimes. And because that takes energy as well. And like, I think it's a lot of what you said about saying something when you see something and holding people accountable in the moment. And it's okay to apologize. We see public figures have to backtrack or backpedal on what they said. We as regular everyday people have to do the same thing. And there was a tack that my father taught me in giving myself a 10-second rule, like just pause before you speak. We don't always have to say something, and we don't always have to have the final word, and we don't always have to have an opinion or perspective. Like a lot of times I've seen this kind of going through social media, like no one asked you to speak about a particular item or what is impacting a certain group, or how a certain group should react or should not react to brutality or discrimination. But show up in ways that community needs you to. So it's just kind of like taking that step back and listening. What do you think, Netta?
No, I think you're spot on with that. Really listening, right? And I think that's something that's so hard for people to do. It's very hard for people to actively listen, right? A lot of the times we already have a thought in our mind and we're like eager to get it out, but we really just have to take that step back and listen. So I think you're spot on, both of you, with your points. Go for it.
Go ahead. I know being in the startup ecosystem, a lot of times we hear the term disrupt a lot, right? Like my product is disrupting an industry or revolutionizing a space. Really, I think it'd be great if we could chat a little bit more of how can we really disrupt discrimination within the workplace, and that also has a history of punishing those who speak out. Like a lot of people are afraid to speak when they see something or see something happen, because oftentimes the person who spoke out is the person who ends up unemployed or ends up not getting promoted, or as simple as, okay, that's great, I just won't add you to the email thread next time, or I won't invite you to the meeting next time. So like, how can we really disrupt all of the discrimination happening in the workplace while also like protecting our peace and our income too?
Listen, it's hard it happens, right? And it's unfortunate because, and I would say that Black women probably receive the brunt of that. When we do speak up, then we're labeled as aggressive, angry, unapproachable, all those things. But we have to, Audre Lorde has a quote that says, beware of feeling you're not good enough to deserve it. Do we not deserve to be treated with dignity, respect, humanized in the workplace? And in order for people to know what good looks like to us, we have to tell them sometimes. And I know that that is hard. Again, disrupting anything takes courage. The definition of courage is the ability to do something that frightens one. And I think this is where our allies come in, because then we don't have to be the only ones talking about it, right? What would it look like if somebody said something that was inappropriate to me, and instead of me going to HR, one of my colleagues actually go to HR and say, hey, I observed X, Y, and Z happening. I just wanted you to make note of it. That would do a world of difference, right? When people realize that, they can't say the things that they used to say to anybody. There's other people holding them accountable. And I think that we have to, in order to disrupt, that's where the allies come in, because Black and brown people, we can't do it by ourselves. Otherwise, we would have done it already, so we need that help. And I think some companies say, are donating millions of dollars to these things, when a lot of this it's a human thing, right? What are you going to do as a human to show up and make the workplace better than you found it, make it better for the next generation? And we are going to need those active allies to step up, and we can't just be the one with the bullhorn. We need other people with the bullhorn too, because then we get to role model what good looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say, even within the workplace, right, look on your team, who's getting the glamorous work and who's gaining the office work, and speak up about it, right? And have the courage to do that, especially if you have the privilege and the power on the team. And I think even as managers and leaders, they have to start looking at that deeply, right? How are they dividing the work? Who's being left off of the email? Who's being left off of those critical projects that could really help propel one's career? That's where practicing allyship really comes into play in helping folks kind of move up as well, and making sure that they have a safe space to share what they need to share, right? Gosh, Minda, you dropped such gems, but I knew you would. Both Jacinta and I were like, listen, Minda's coming on, she's gonna drop gems, and then she's just gonna peace out.
And at least we know at least people know where they can find more. Like, you can find Minda on Monday on LinkedIn Live.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit, maybe before we leave, about your new book too?
Yeah, thank you. Again, thank you both for, being so supportive, and know that I'm also here to support you all, because you're doing great work. That's how we disrupt. Success is not a solo sport. It takes all of us pushing this cart together. If you haven't read the memo and you want more, definitely go there, get it wherever books are sold. But the next book, Right Within, I love pop culture and I love music. And Lauryn Hill said, how you gonna win if you ain't right within? Yeah. If we don't have the allies, if we don't have the good manager, what are we going to do to be able to make sure that we can thrive in the workplace and not just survive? Because when I was in my former life, I spent 15 years being racially aggressed every single day, sometimes countless times a day. And you don't realize how that affects you. It affects who you show up as inside and outside the workplace, with your family, with your friends. And because we, as Black women, we are often conditioned to just make everything work. We do that at the expense of our own well-being. And so it's time to be right within so that we can do the best work of our careers.
Yeah. There's someone, thank you so much for that. Someone just said, speak out on issues regarding racism, culture, and favoritism. Absolutely. Well, Minda, thank you so much for your time. We're excited. Like we said before, if you have not picked up any book that Minda has read or wrote, please do so. It is this is, what do we want to call this? An emergency, right? You need
911.
Kind of disrupt, right? Yeah.
An emergency. This is urgent. Mm-hmm. Go and run with your mask on and get that book, right? Order it, actually, get it. Thank you again, Minda. To all professionals of color, connect with us on ourdipper.com right now by signing up and completing your profile on ourdipper.com so that we can unpack all the gems our guests dropped today. Also, be sure to rate and review all companies that you have worked for on ourdipper.com. Sign up, be the guide to a better workplace, log in, share your voice, and find your space. Thank you all for joining, and we hope to hear from you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.